Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Ironheart. Great series premiere, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, it's still unclear how long it's been since the events of Wakanda Forever. I have not seen Wakanda Forever since it was originally in theaters, so I don't remember all of Riri's story beats, what we already knew about Riri at the time versus what we're fully learning about now. I think her stepfather and, Gary and the whole Natalie thing obviously is new, I believe. But either way, I think this is interesting, and it seems to be like her arc in this series is going to be her belief that she's like the only difference between her and Tony, because genius isn't cheap. So she's like the only difference between her and Tony, like, the main contributing factor is he had billions and resources, and that's something she reiterates over and over again. And I think for her, it's like, if I had that, I could accomplish so much. And it's that good natured thing of you want to do good, but like, once again, genius isn't cheap, so you probably have to go about shady means. Obviously, she was doing some not so reputable stuff to gather money to kind of build what she wanted, and obviously she went about things kind of like the wrong way in the regards of you're helping out people's assignments at other schools and not your own, but obviously the schools ended up finding out about it. But I'm wondering if a theme in this is going to be similar to like Peter's arc in Homecoming, where he felt like, oh, without the suit, I'm nothing. And it's like, well, if you feel that way and think that way, maybe you don't deserve the suit. Maybe it's kind of a similar thing in that regard. But going back to it, Riri, she plans on, and it's interesting because obviously Tony came from weaponry, like that's what Stark Industries was built off of. She, on the other hand, wants to kind of go the more defensive route. She wants to help she wants to help firefighters and response units. Like she's coming at it from a safety place, which is interesting considering like Tony also came from that at one point in time. Age of Ultron, the whole wanting to put a suit of armor around the world, right? So I think there's interesting parallels too. But also this thought process that she has that like she's being stifled, that she's being put in a box, her genius. But like even the dean's like, no, you've gotten a lot of free reign. The fact of the matter is we let a lot of stuff go, even though we probably shouldn't have. Because of you, there's a whole bunch of destructive equipment, and they end up having to finally kick her out. But she ends up, taking off of her suit because it's like, well, I did build it. But the AI system is built off of, I guess the skull played a big role in making that AI Trevor, which I love. Is like, oh, take me home to Chicago. Chicago is a band. She's like, no, Chicago, Illinois. I was almost wondering, is that going to be her AI going forward? It's not, but we'll talk about that later. Obviously, her attempt to go home, nearly successful, kind of crashed and burned along the way, but that's because the school rejected her AI system. I think that's why she was running out of air and stuff like that, or why everything was wonky. It could also just be there's faults in the suits that weren't fully there either, fully realized, and she crashed and burned pretty badly. Also, I thought that was a pretty neat title card. I was like, oh, that's a pretty neat way to get the title card. But the kind of walk of shame with your suit of armor, people and like, yo, what do we call you? Do you need a band-aid or something? Like, damn, that was rough. That was you flying in that suit of armor, and even having to pay that kid Landon money. And it's like, yeah, I'll carry that for you. And he does. It's just, hey, but just like, kids just looking for that, that opportunity. It's like $20. She's like, $20, really? He's like, honestly, you could pay me more. I could take it all the way upstairs for you too. And she's just like, all right, here's your 20. Like, once again, everyone's got to hustle, right? Side note, when we, she comes home, once again, walk of shame and stuff, she can hear her mom saying like, right, her mom having to contend with, hey, like, I try to give her space. I try to do right by her, but Riri's going to Riri. And part of me wonders how much of that is what happened versus this is just Riri being Riri. So it's kind of, you also feeling like no one understands you, but it's that thing of when trauma happens, what do? You turn it inwards and you kind of keep it to yourself. I wonder, is that also a reason why she's coming at tech from the safety perspective? Because it's like, if if this existed, maybe people could have gotten to maybe Gary and Natalie a lot sooner. So that's probably her incessant need to like build so much and make a name for herself, because tragedy, you never want it to happen again. So you want, but also it's like you're throwing yourself fully into your work so you don't have to think about anything else. I think that's all applicable there. But one of the people there, I think her name is Miss Stanton, but I think the character's name is like, first name is Madeline. The moment I heard that voice, I had to pause. I was like, is that Cree Summers? I had to wait till the credits to fully confirm it, but it was. I was like, I freaking knew it. Dude, Cree Summers has such a distinct voice. But that's the thing, like, I don't always, like, put her, like, I can never always remember what she looks like. I think I've only seen Cree Summers, like, not, like, in person, but, like, I've seen her face, like, a handful of times. But, I mean, if you don't know Cree Summers, a very renowned voice actress. Like, I mean, if you're, like, in their 30s like me, you definitely grew up with her voice. Because the thing that first immediately comes to my mind, she was Susie in Rugrats, and number 5 in Codename Kids Next Door are two great examples that immediately come to mind. But she's been in TV shows, video games. Once again, her voice is so, like, it's that smooth sultriness to her voice. It's just like, it's like butter, dude. I know I'm like, dude, I trip out about voice actors, especially like seeing them in live action and stuff like that, but it's when you grow up with hearing someone's voice and it scratches that part of my brain. Was like, that sounds like Cree Summers. I mean, and that's the thing, dude. That's her natural voice. It sounds so smooth and sultry like that. It's like, god damn. I'm sorry. I'm just like flipping out a little bit. Like, she's probably done a lot of live action stuff, but it's just like, my knowledge of her is through her voice work. So but I was like, man, that's so sick having Cree Summers in this. That's so dope. I wonder if I'm so curious. Okay, so I looked it up because I was curious, like, has she ever, like, voiced anything in Marvel? Of course she has. Of course, across her history, of course she would have done something Marvel related. She's also done some DC stuff. But from what I could see, like, there was an animated Hulk series where she voiced She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters. There's a Guardians of the Galaxy animated series from a couple years ago. Apparently, she voiced one of the voices she did for it was Nebula. So I was like, oh man. And apparently, she voiced one character in the Moon Girl animated series too. So there was something else on the list that was even more recent, I think, that was Marvel related. But either way, I was so curious, like, has she had any like Marvel connections in the past? And yeah, she has. But either way, I'm going on my massive diatribe. I'm sorry I took away from everything. That was kind of like such a massive thing. But like I said, I was tripping about that. But I think it's interesting, her character being kind of the very like, ooh, like bad auras and energies. Let me like burn some sense to like kind of ward away bad. It's like, oh, and even saying like obsidian is good for dealing with grief and stuff like that. So I'm like, interesting. So I guess it's kind of like that maybe like spiritual hippy dippy person. But I'm also curious, especially the nature of what this series is. It's tech versus magic. So I'm curious to see if that's going to come back around in some shape or form. But we also get introduced to Xavier, who's kind of, I guess, like a good friend. Because her best friend was Natalie, and Natalie was Xavier's. So I wonder if it's going to be those things of like, oh yeah, like you've always had a thing for your best friend's brother type of situation. I don't know. Also like that mural for Gary and Natalie, and her reasons for not being home, because this was like 5 years ago, and she just probably tried to avoid coming home as much as possible, just because those wounds never heal. Once again, you just want to dive into work and distract yourself. While it's your motivator, but it's also the thing you're running from in that capacity too. It's the thing that drives you to want to help the world, but also scares you to your core that you don't want to face it. And it's sad because it puts her mom in a situation where she just feels like, oh, so like she lashes out at her mom. It's like, yo, I went to see Gary's shop, and so you don't care about his dream. She's like, I didn't know you even cared about that place. I've tried to talk to you about it for 5 years. Oh, she's like, oh, so it's my fault that you're like gave up on Gary's dream. And it's just like her mom can't say anything right. I mean, it's like you have your young kid who's just lashing out at you because she needs an outlet. It's not right to take it out on your mom. She's juggling and trying to balance everything. I'm curious about like if they're ever going to touch on like Riri's bio dad, like who is he and stuff like that. Because it seemed like Gary was her stepdad. So the question is, like who was her bio dad? Is he still out there in the world, or is he going to, or what? She also talks about how building an iron suit isn't what she wants to do. There's many other things, but she's like, if I don't build like the only thing that's going to catch people's attention, if I can build an iron suit first, show that I'm better, smarter than even Tony Stark, then that can be the building block that I can start from there to do whatever I want, you know. But it's like she doesn't want to stay home because she feels like it's so small and confining. Because it's like it's almost like, you know, a little egotistical, you know, but also like, you know, you need that drive and ambition to be like, yo, I wanna, you know, staying here is just so small. Like if I want to do more in the world, I want to build something, I can do more. Just no one's taking the opportunity. Obviously, it makes me just immediately think the Tony thing, the specifically the Obadiah Stane thing that people quote the most from Jeff Bridges, of just the whole like, you know, uh, cave box of scraps, you know, that thing that people quote the most from that movie, or at least one of the things people like quote slash meme the most from that movie. At the same time, we got introduced to the Hood and his crew, which I think I knew Eric Andre was in this. I didn't. I was just wasn't. I was like, fucking Eric Andre, hell yeah! He's supposed to be kind of like their hacker tech dude to deal with the systems. He's like, they call him Stu. He's like, not Stu, not Stewart. Rampage is like, dude, we're not calling you Rampage. Why not? It's like everyone else has code names, yeah, but yours is stupid. So they were supposed to bust into a place. We don't know what they're trying to get, especially because it sounds like this place is one of three places they're aiming for, and then there's like a big job. So what that entails, we'll have to wait to see. But the job went super sideways, and you knew immediately. I'm like, there's no way Eric Andre's sticking around. I'm like, he's going to be the comic relief, but it's also like, you're going to get God, you're the sacrificial lamb, and they're not going to do anything to Stewart yet. It's not until Riri proves herself as his replacement. It's like, right, find someone to replace him first, and then we get rid of him. So, question is, how's Stu going to catch it? It's probably going to be a pretty horrific way too, and that's probably going to be the eye-opening thing for Riri. Either she's going to witness the death, or she's going to find out after the fact, like, yo, that's Stewart, he died. We'll see how that shapes up and plays out, but it's really interesting how worlds end up colliding the way they do. It's like, just, you know, it's almost like probably a sign from the heavens, or maybe a sign from the devil himself, of while they're thinking of looking for a replacement for Stu, lo and behold, Riri comes flying through right above them. So that made them take an interest in her, check her out. She's kind of a little bit of a local celebrity. She's always been a genius, working her way up so quickly through school and stuff, building stuff. Even that guy later on, what's his name, Jim, his place having all those rules, and he's like, oh, Riri, I knew you'd be something great, you'll go off MIT, come back and spend your money here. And she's like, yeah, about that. John's like, John, played by Manny Montana. I'm like, hey, God, was Graceland the first thing I ever saw him in? Obviously the show I think about him the most in is oh God, Good Girls is probably the thing I think about the most. um I want to say Graceland might have been the first thing I ever saw him in. Which is just, once again, just the interesting thing of like, yeah, that was an undercover cop show. Then I best know him for a crime drama where he was a big time criminal and kind of a right hand criminal. I wonder if him and the Hood are just best buds, or are they actually siblings. I'm curious about that. I mean, you never know with Bro, because Bro could be like, no, we're just like tight, we're just good friends, or maybe we actually are related. I don't know, because but he's definitely, regardless. I mean, he's definitely the like right hand man. He's the Hood's closest confidant, you know. So because John's the one that kind of goes through the recruiting process initially of reaching out to Riri, saying all the things like, yo, like I get it, institutions, they hold you back. The fact of the matter is they're saying all the buzz things that she needs to hear, where it's like, oh, it's too small for you. You need the money and resources to for your vision. And it's like saying all the things that he knows, like, right, because you're like us. You want something bigger and better. You just, world hasn't made it easy for you. So it's like, hey, we got you. So just stop by this place. They put her through a whole test, which passed in her own way. But yeah, the question is, was it really them going to like gas her? Like, who knows? It probably might have been real. It probably would have knocked her out. Probably wouldn't have killed her, but it probably knocked her out. I also love that she immediately recognized Stuart because she's like, "Oh, so and so at this Discord thing." He was like, "I told you people recognize me." It's like, "Nah, dog, nah." Um, but yeah, like the Hood or Parker, as it seemed to be his real name, not unless that's an alias, being like, "Hey, yo, like here's a down payment. So much more waiting for you on the next. Like you do these 3 jobs for us, and there's so much more waiting for you." And it's like, yeah, it might be illegal. And it's like, she's like, "What are you doing? And why are you doing it?" He's like, "Well." He's like, "We're doing a little breaking and entering, extortion, nothing that bad. Like, no one's getting hurt," Mercedes. Like, well, that's how it always starts, right? But I was actually sitting here thinking about it. Like, I know a few of the things he's been in, but I've never seen them, like the movies and stuff. So I'm like, I think this is the first thing I've ever seen Anthony Ramos in. Like, now I'm like sitting here thinking about it, I believe it is. Either way, I was kind of thinking about that for a second. So Riri does say like, okay, I'm down for the job. It's like, oh, this opportunity. It's like, you're willing. I mean, once again, she's done some very gray area stuff, like some not so legal, some frowned upon stuff. Granted, it's never been anything too big, and this will probably be like the biggest like illegal thing that she's done or that you morally frown upon thing. But it's also the thing of you didn't ask enough questions because you also kind of didn't want to know because you're so desperate for money that and to get your vision out there. You're kind of like, well, as long as no one's getting hurt. But it's like you didn't ask enough questions, and that's going to be your problem later on. It's just like your ambition is kind of like stopping you from like kind of approaching this like the best way you could and should. But either way, they're gonna need her iron suit, and she has to repair it and kind of make the changes she needs to. And so she's working overnight. Obviously, get a little bit of a flashback to what happened with Natalie and Gary. We saw only her perspective on it, so I'm curious to see how, like, other than just the past trauma thing, that's going to resurface in like either like I'm curious, are we going to find out if it has anything to do with like are these stories between Riri and the Hood a lot more tied than we're initially thinking? That could it be a situation of whatever like his past is might connect to how Riri lost? Because it seemed like just from the little we got of that flashback, it seemed like it was a drive-by situation, but that's unclear. But obviously, she's working on building, like, not only repairing the suit, but she also needed to craft her own AI. And the fact that she was thinking about Natalie at the time, I was like, is that what that's going to do? And because that was flooding her memories at the time, it basically, that I thought was an interesting thing of like, oh, because I believe in the comics, her AI is Tony, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, like, it's very costly to get Robert Downey Jr. for just something like that. But could always pop up in the future, but I like that there's actually an emotional tie and connection to her AI being Natalie, which obviously it's kind of like, I think, it's going to be a therapeutic way of, dealing with her grief in a lot of ways, in that capacity. It's like, you never lost her, you got to keep her. Granted, how many people are you going to be showing that off to? Like, are you going to show that off to your mom or Xavier? Because that's going to be complicated. I mean, this all kind of got sparked too because even though she was trying to bury those memories, she's constantly having to confront it. Not obviously she kind of runs away from it a little bit, but like Xavier, even including like voicemail from Natalie in that song the mixtape he had gotten for Riri. So yeah, that's quite the shock, and yeah, but also it kind of, like I said, you work through your pain with this, but also it's almost like you got your best friend back, like probably get to say that all the things to her that you couldn't say before, have share these memories with her that you couldn't before, but yeah, we'll see how that continues and plays out. But then also we have the situation with the Hood get John tattooing him, which I'm like, I wonder because the hood is where his power comes from, but I'm wondering like what roles does the tattoo have in all this? I guess maybe it's like a piece to the puzzle of like maybe it's like it's something he has to do to either make the hood completely his or like I don't know enough about the character. Like my only experience with the character is like the one episode the character was in season 3 of What If. That's my only connection, and it wasn't even like the hood, this version of the hood, because they did a twist on the hood. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, but yeah, interesting enough, there was also like a Riri Williams episode too. So, but I like just like the ominous thing and just energy and just feel when he's like putting the like hood on that like racked mannequin and then leaving, but you can just tell like something's kind of tugging and pulling at him. But like I said, I'm so curious what the tattoos are about because John was like, yo, I hate that I'm having to do this to you. But it's like it seems like it's a necessary piece to this puzzle. Like maybe like I said, I don't know if it's like a thing of like you have to sacrifice your flesh to be able to use the hood, or is he the more of that symbol he draws on his body, the more he won't need the hood's power anymore. He can make it his own. Like I'm so curious to find out what that's all about. But yeah, obviously this was like a 3 episode drop, so 2 more episodes to kind of continue forward. But I'm really interested to see where things end up going from here, finding out more of what the Hood's plan is, and see how this all shakes up and plays out. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.